It was only a few short weeks ago when I made the video on this channel about how I think the Los Angeles Chargers can make a similar run to what the 2020 Cincinnati Bengals did. Now, when I made that video, it's a huge jump to go from missing the playoffs to making the Super Bowl. And I wasn't saying that the Chargers were my favorite to win the Super Bowl or anything like that. The whole goal of that video is to explain how I think the Chargers could realistically set themselves up to have a huge 2022-23 NFL season. Now, I talked about some of the situations and some of the free agents that could go after, but the Chargers have absolutely blown my expectations out of the water with what they could do. I'm pretty sure every NFL fan agrees with me with what they've done so far is absolutely unbelievable because it just didn't seem realistic. They started off free agency, or I should say offseason because it was before free agency, making a crazy trade. Not the craziest. I think that, that AFC West division has just made crazy signings and crazy trades basically over the last 2 weeks. But the Chargers made a crazy trade when they acquired Khalil Mack from the Chicago Bears. Khalil Mack, despite being a little bit of an older player right now, has had crazy production in the NFL and has been one of the best offensive players in the NFL over the last decade. Now, I don't think he's going to take a huge step backwards like some people are saying. I know he was injured a little bit last year, but there's no sign of, that he digressed in any aspect. When he's played, he's continued his dominance, and he was on a Bears team that continued to decline, and his production pretty much stayed the same. Khalil Mack is going to be on the other side of Joey Bosa, so he's not going to be garnering the full attention of the offensive lines and the offensive schemes and stuff like that, because there's so much talent on that Chargers defense. And you think just adding Khalil Mack was going to be good enough, and that was a huge offseason acquisition for the Chargers, right? Free agency opens, and the Los Angeles Chargers go out and sign the best cornerback on the market, J.C. Jackson, Mr. Interception himself from the New England Patriots, who didn't even offer him a contract, apparently. I don't know if that's 100% true, but if that is true, that is absolutely crazy. J.C. Jackson is going to really help and add a key piece to a cornerback room in the Chargers that was really missing some talent. I talked about in that video I made a few weeks ago. If you haven't watched that, you can go back. I think it was like 3 videos ago. But I talked about how the cornerback room was one of the weakest points for the Chargers, and their rookie, Asante Samuel Jr., was the best cornerback on their roster last year. I think he had some injuries. Not 100% on that. I'm pretty sure he was the player that had some injuries and was the best cornerback on the team. I know that for sure. And then I suggested that, maybe a good depth piece for the Chargers was going to be re-signing Chris Harris Jr. Now, Chargers fans made it very clear in the comments. It was really funny that you guys were extremely against signing Chris Harris Jr. because you didn't think he was worth it. You thought he got beat. He got smoked too many times. And I completely understand, right? I watched the Chargers from like a casual outside point of view. A fan of the team is going to know a little bit more about me, and I completely understand that. So I'm going to take your guys' word for it. However, the Chargers understood your guys' opinion as well because they went out and signed the best cornerback on the market. And adding J.C. Jackson to a secondary that already has his high school teammate in Derwin James is just absolutely insane because that secondary really good right now. You got Asante Samuel Jr. as your cornerback 2 now. You got J.C. Jackson as cornerback number 1. You got Derwin James back there at safety. Like, you are really set in the secondary. You don't need any more superstars because you already got 2 superstars and 1 really solid young player who could potentially develop into a superstar himself in Asante Samuel Jr. And then on the defensive line, any defensive line that has 2 players that, could put up 10 sacks is ridiculous. And the fact that you have 2 players in Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack who can literally dominate the game whenever they, are in a one-on-one situation, it's just going to change the Chargers defense entirely. And because of those 2 huge signings that the Chargers made, they really set themselves up for huge success in 22 and 23 NFL season. It's going to be really scary to face the Chargers. And the thing that stinks for them is that their division, besides the Chargers just getting better, almost everyone in their division has gotten better, apart from the Raiders, who aren't a bad team, right? They beat the Chargers in the final week of the season to make the playoffs. Like, it's just ridiculous, right? The Chiefs, they're just the Chiefs. They didn't really get better, to be honest, but they're just the Chiefs. Like, there's just a standard there. The Broncos, they got much better, right? You had Russell Wilson. They still Randy Gregory from the Cowboys. There's just been so much that's happened inside that division. The Chargers, again, probably the team that's made the most beneficial moves to the team, apart from the Broncos, right? Quarterback's a big position, but the Chargers, from like a defensive perspective and an all-team perspective, they added some really key pieces. Now the Chargers could really focus on the NFL draft And the two positions that they have to look at, I think, is linebacker and offensive line. They took Rashawn Slater at 13th overall last year, and he was absolutely a steal for them because he looks like he maybe he's definitely a top 5 player in the class right now, right? Other players will continue to develop and stuff like that. You can't really judge a draft until, probably 5 or 7 years down the line. You could be like, oh yeah, that was a good pick for them. That wasn't. But Rashawn Slater has already proved that he was a good pick. I mean, he was one of the best tackles in the league as a rookie. He's just going to continue to, develop and get better. So fantastic pick. But now the Chargers could, continue to bolster that offensive line and really help Justin Herbert take another step. Could you imagine Justin Herbert having more time in the pocket? I mean, he already has, a decent amount of time, is able to make reads quickly and stuff like that. But if he has more time, and there's so many talented offensive linemen in this draft, whether, you're going to have a player that maybe slips out of the top 10, with the Jaguars and the Jets being two teams that have been linked to, Ika Mekwonu and Evan Neal, or Charles Cross with the Giants and stuff like that. Those teams have always been linked with them because they made the offensive line. The Jaguars went out and signed an offensive lineman. The Jets went out and signed an offensive lineman. The Giants went out and signed an offensive lineman. There's potential that some of these great offensive linemen that would probably be top 5, top 10 picks in other years are going to slip out of the top 10, right? I'm not saying they are, but there's a big chance that they're going to. So the Chargers might be in prime position to, first off, maybe have one of those 3 slip to them. And Charles Cross, but there's also players like Trevor Penning or Zion Johnson from Boston College. There's a lot of offensive linemen that are first round talent, and the Chargers will probably have their opportunity of at least a choice of them, right? At least 2 I would expect to be on the board by the time the Chargers are picking. So really, really good position for the Chargers. And then linebacker, I mean, there's Nakobe Dean. His name slips my mind, but there's a linebacker from Utah. I lost track of his name. Apologies for that. But both of those great linebackers will probably be there when the Chargers are picking. The Chargers are going to have I think those are the only real pieces that the Chargers need to upgrade, need upgrades at, right? The offensive line, not great. Not bad either. All right. If you didn't, sign a cornerback or, sign another defensive end to go, on the other side, Joey Bosa, those would be realistic options. But because you got great players at those positions, you could focus on something that, is a big need, but you're just upgrading the position, right? And that's why I think linebacker and offensive line is going to be for the Chargers. Let me know what you guys think the Chargers are going to be doing in the draft. Let me know what you guys think. What do you think the Chargers are going to do this season, right? I mean, they've made one of the craziest offseason moves we've seen in the last 10 years. The AFC West is just ridiculous right now, and I feel bad for all those teams because if they were in any other division, they'd probably all win it. So let me know in the comments below, guys. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out the channel so much. And good luck, Chargers.